So, Kamlesh sir, could you talk a little bit about your journey and how has it been for you in the last couple of years?
I have been working in the area of higher education for the last 32 years now. The last 10 to 15 years have been the most challenging and exciting times in higher education, where I have been investing most of my time in building new universities and new institutions in higher education. I did one in Gujarat, or university that I was the founding vice chancellor there. Then I am building this one, which is Rishihood, which is a new greenfield project. So my interests have been mainly in the area of new universities, greenfield projects, starting from scratch. It's been very exciting journey. It's more about not just building the university, but creating, identifying and creating people who can manage educational institutions and administer them well, and keeping in view that the stakeholders are well served in the capacity that they are involved with us. So that's how it has been so far for the last 8-10 years.
Great. So, what are the few challenges that you have faced in this landscape in the recent time?
See, challenges most of the time, there are two different types of challenges. One is the challenge of meeting regulatory requirements. We operate in a very controlled environment in India. Education is highly controlled, and not only that, it is under severe control system. There are multiple layers because education is in the concurrent list. So the center and the states both have powers over education, and many times the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. So we have a lot of challenges to cross, and multiple agencies are there within the system. That's one challenge, and that's probably has been there. It would be there in some form or the other. I'm not against regulation, but I'm against control. Regulation is good, control is bad. But the other challenges in higher education is basically identifying the right people who become the teachers, because that's a difficult area in India, that we have a declining quality of higher education, but that is also linked to a lot of things. For example, the quality of our PhD programs has declined over the last 30 years. And therefore, the kind of teachers that we get with PhDs are the PhD thesis is like a master's degree dissertation. So I think that's where we have challenge of identifying. But fortunately, I've been able to get good people. So I identify people who may be in a smaller college or an institution, but have not got the opportunity to come up, and I identify them, bring them, train them, and they do a good job. And maintaining the quality is important, and that's one of the areas that we always have to struggle in order to maintain that quality in the system. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, coming back a little bit to your career, how was the transition? We know you've worked with government institutions and you work with private universities and on a private level as a consultant as well. So how was that transition and how were those experiences for you?
Well, when I returned from the United States, I was teaching in the United States and I taught there for about, I was there for about 14 years. And when I came back, I joined a government institution, which was basically a think tank of the finance ministry. The work was good. It's more of a training and research institution rather than a degree granting institution. So it was good. I don't have didn't have any problems in working there. But in about 2 years' time, I realized that I was not made for a government sector. Although people feel that they are very secure and their job is permanent, they cannot be fired, and you have a very comfortable life. But I felt that that's not what I was looking at. I was looking more of a area which is based on my ability to take the risk. And so I decided to move out. I resigned, which most people don't do. Everybody told me also, why are you doing this? But then I moved into the private sector and I started setting up institutions for the private sector. And for me, that was a challenge, you know. But I enjoyed every bit of it. Every institution that I built was a great fun activity to me, you know, because I was enjoying it immensely, what I was doing, because I was involved in creating something different. Now, I also had a lot of experience from the US and I had seen the good things that happened in that system. So I was trying to bring a balance between maintaining our cultural heritage in education system, but at the same time to take the good things from the Western system into the educational philosophy that we have. So it was good. It was very, very challenging. Yeah.
Amazing. So you talked about the Western education system and giving it a blend. How would you think the Indian system and the Western system contrasts? And what do you think we can adapt from them? And what do you think they can adapt from us?
I think the quality of education is the main thing that we need to worry about, and we have to take from the Western system. Their quality of education is very, very good, you know, and that's something that we really have to learn from them. You know, that's something that was very, very interesting for me to try and implement. I think the level of responsibility that teachers take, faculty members take in the American system is very, very high. They are very, very committed people. Uh, American universities don't have a system of timing for faculty members, that when they are coming, when they are going. Nobody cares about these kind of things. You know, if I have a class on a Tuesday, I come to my class, and after that, nobody asks me if what am I doing it. But people, if they are not in the office, they are doing something very constructive for the university, for the school. Either they are doing consulting assignments, or they are working on certain projects, or they are doing some research. So I think that you know, that kind of a system is very, very good for an educational institution. But that kind of a free system also requires people to take on a lot of responsibilities. Many times, my experience was when I gave people that kind of freedom, they always misused it. You know, and that's something that is very challenging in Indian context. You know, the other areas are in terms of what is taught and how it is taught. In Indian education system, the onus is always on the teacher to teach. But in the Western system, the onus of learning is on the student. So the focus is more on learning rather than teaching. So we are more used to a system that we should teach. Humne padha diya. Now it's for the student to go and take the exam. In the Western model, it is more about how much has the student learned. That is more important than how much have I taught. Also, there is a difference between what I teach is what I know, but what the student needs to know, maybe I'm not teaching that.
Right.
And that system, I think those balances are very well defined, and people take responsibility for that.
Great. So when we talk about the future of the Indian education system, first of all, what are the few challenges that you think that we face as a country, and what do you think the future holds for India, especially considering that even just the last 1 year has seen so much change in how we teach and how we learn. So what are your expectations and hopes?
See, I think if you look at the new education policy that has come out, if you go into the details of that, you will find that there is, at least the policy tries to give a lot of flexibility to the educational system.
It does look good on paper.
Yes, but much of it will depend on the implementation and how people do it. I think what we need is that we need a lot of independence that should be given to educational institutions. Now, for example, many times we say in Indian education system, we should have a common syllabus across all universities. But in Western countries, universities differentiate themselves based on what the syllabus is, right? I am better because I have a better syllabus or a better pedagogy, a better way of delivering the program. So we seem to be more, we try to box everything and we create these compartments. This is how it needs to be done. So if the government agencies have to decide who I can admit in the program, what I have to teach, how I have to conduct the exams, how I declare the results, if all these things which were traditionally the domain of higher education institutions are now going to be done by the government agencies, then what is the function of the universities and their teachers? Right. Are we creating Indira Gandhi National Open University where students come and they take the exam? I think we need a more flexible system which puts the onus of all these things on the universities. That is how universities, even in India, were traditionally. Universities had a lot of power to make decisions on academic areas, which over a period of last 25, 30 years, somehow got taken over by a lot of regulatory agencies. And that has done a lot of damage to the education sector. So I hope that, as we move forward, we will have universities and colleges who are more independent, more autonomous in their functioning. They decide their fate, they decide their syllabus, they decide how the exams are conducted, and what the duration of the degree program is. For example, in the United States, we normally say an undergraduate program, a normal duration is 4 years. But a student can finish the program in 3 years if he wants, right? Because it's possible for him to take more courses and finish. Right. We have time-bound degree programs. The Western universities have credit-based duration. You need 200 credits. You can do it in 2 years and graduate, or you can do it in 5 years and graduate. Time is not the essence. Right. So, I think we are trying to move in that kind of a system where we are trying to define a degree program by the number of credits that are required to graduate, right? So we have introduced now credit-based systems in India, but we also have fixed the time frame, right? So when you have a time frame and a credit base, then you don't have the flexibility. Absolutely. So if I'm a student and I finish my 200 credits in 2.5 years, why would you not let me graduate? Because I haven't finished 3 years, right? That's where the flexibility needs to come and should be given to the universities. I think universities also need freedom to create new degree programs. For example, now we are going through a digital revolution. And there are a lot of problems that emerge from the digital revolution. For example, security is a major issue, right? But if I want to launch a program which I would say is a master's degree in cybersecurity, MS in cybersecurity, then I cannot do it because that nomenclature, MS in cybersecurity, is not there with the UGC. It's not on that. So I think universities need to have the freedom to create new degree programs. And, otherwise you have to go through the regulatory agencies. They may take 2 years to give you approval, and by that time, the damage is already done. So I think those flexibilities are going to be required, which fortunately the new education policy has those provisions. But let's see how the implementation. I think, as we say, that the devil is always in the details of how it is.
Okay. So, sir, my final question to you would be, what is a piece of advice that you have for young educators who are just getting into the industry?
See, I think, especially, in terms of, are you talking in terms of teachers or students?
Maybe one single piece of advice for both, one each.
Well, for students, I will say first, don't chase your friends where they are going. Chase your own dream, because it's important for you to do what you really like best, right? And we are in a stage where you can do well in every field, but you cannot be average. There is no place for averages anymore. I think we are moving in that kind of a state. For the teachers, I would say, don't get into this profession if you really don't want to be a teacher. Don't be a teacher by default. Being a teacher requires a lot of personal sacrifice. And people who are getting into this profession because I'm not getting anything in the industry, so I'll go into education and become a teacher is a bad idea. I think people should go by choice.
Definitely.
And then they will excel.